Hey there, YouTube. Welcome to Big Mike Beard Wisdom. So, today we're going to talk a little bit about one of the big downfalls of having solar panels that sit at a relatively flat angle in Minnesota, and that's going to be snow. So, you can kind of see my panels are on my garage. The garage doesn't have a super great peak to it, so the snow kind of lands on it and stays on it. And we probably went about 3 months of having those panels pretty solidly covered so that there was very little, if any, production. And you can kind of see it's just now kind of cleared off. There's still a pretty big chunk of snow on the roof that's not the solar panels. And you can kind of see down here that a lot of the snow that was on the solar panels fell down just recently. The fun part is that it's supposed to snow later today. So, being that it's March, we should hopefully see some decent production once the snow starts staying away for quite a while. And one of the big things to think about if you're going to do solar panels is the ability to clear the snow. So I do use a snow broom for clearing it off, but at the pitch that the roof's at, I've got to stand way out in the yard a pretty good ways. So kind of where I've snow blown the pathing and stuff like that. That way we can take Shadow and Bandit out in the yard to go do their business. Barely gets me probably halfway up the panels with that long pole. So real quick, we used the presentation trash can to hold this up for me. And this is I think it's like a Mr. Long Arm. So I think this is about 8 feet. And then this extends out further in this section here, and then there's a final really thin section that extends even further yet. Then I just use like a Snow Broom Snow Pro on the panels, and it's one of those things where this is just a real soft foam, so you don't really worry about scratching anything, so it should be pretty decent. The only bad part is that when it's like a really stiff kind of heavy snow, you're not going to be able to get much of it off, which is part of the problem that we had. Was that we had some pretty heavy snows that froze in really, really hard. I wasn't actually able even to make a dent in the snow and ice that was up there. So, for about 3 months there, we didn't have any production really. And then you can see, it tells you how to, set this up. So unscrew it, slide it out, slide it in, tighten it back up. And yep, so it's an 8 feet to 23 feet one. And again, you've got to get quite the angle, because even from here, at like my vision height, so at like 6 feet, maybe like 5'5", 5'6" or something like that, wherever your eyes are compared to your head, you can see I'm pretty much at a flat angle with the panels. And that's even up, I'm probably a good 6 inches of ice and snow down here. Then, to a degree, the solar panels do have some self-melting or self-clearing properties and stuff like that, because they're a pretty dark color. They're a dark black and blue. They do absorb some of the light and kind of warm up enough. That way, if you get like a corner kind of cleared off, as long as you got good sunlight, you'll be okay. But really, up here in Minnesota, a lot of times this winter, we haven't had good sunlight. It's been really cloudy the entire time. And then, by about now in March, we're like, oh, look, it's the sun. The sun's back. And then one of the things to be conscious of is that, like, the snow and the rain that hits solar panels will come down with a little bit faster speed than the rest of the roof. So the garage just has like a metal roofing and stuff up there, and it's a lighter color. So the fact that solar panels are already cleared off, and yet there's still a bunch of snow sitting over there, just goes to show you that the coloring of the solar panels really helps it slide. Now, if we're talking with a asphalt roof, think about it as the snow having to slide off more or less sandpaper. And you can see the pitch on the shed here is quite a more aggressive pitch, but those asphalt shingles are helping to hold on to that snow pretty good. That and the fact that it doesn't get a whole lot of sunlight on that side. But that snow is also not just sliding down. Whereas like with my metal roof, it's very slidey. There are bolts that go through it every now and then, but same thing with the solar panels. With the solar panels, there's racking on there that they have like little bolt heads that stick up that would theoretically slow the snow down too. But essentially, right in front of that door is where all the snow kind of like shrumped off and fell and hit. And not all at once, because this took quite a while and some of it extended out pretty good. So it makes for a little bit of a watch your head or danger falling objects kind of area. So here we are zoomed in, and you can see like the bracketing and the bolts. So those brackets and bolts might help slow down some of the snow as it's coming down, but really not too much. And I would expect it to only slow it down about the same amount as the little bolts that you see there at the end of the roof. And both the roof and the solar panels themselves are looking fairly dirty after this wintertime, and will probably need cleaned up to help maximize production. So that'll be kind of one of those things that'll be another video. So with the first stage extended, there's a little bit of bend and wobble to it. Not so much bend and wobble to the fiberglass section, but in that metal section there. So as I go to pick it up, you'll see some of that flex. So think of it kind of like a fishing pole. So when you go up on the panels, you might be able to go up about the, up into it a ways, but eventually the metal section will contact the panel itself. So right there, it's hitting the frame. It hitting the frame probably isn't a big deal. Whereas if it was farther up and it starts smacking the panel itself, now that's somewhere I don't want to be. So a lot of times that's where I'll extend out the middle section, that way I can reach farther in. But again, depending on the snow, depends on whether or not you're able to move it. So real quick, let's see how stiff this is. So that's pretty stiff. Come on, break. Okay. So that's not working though really great. And it's just one of those things that it's been like that pretty much all winter. And the section I've been smacking at extends out fairly far underneath. So when it's this icy, it's very tough to move. And then if this is sitting on top of your panels, you maybe don't want to be smacking it and possibly maybe damage the panel. Like my panels are rated to take a pretty good size amount of hail, so I would assume a fair amount of force, but it's still a pretty pricey investment that I don't want to risk. So instead of really working to try and clear the snow, I just let it sit and melt over time. And then if you're curious, fully extended, so all the way out, this has quite a lot of bend to it with just that little bit of weight at the end of the Snow Pro. But you're able to get up there pretty far. Just you got to be more careful because that bendy middle section is even more bendy and floppy, and there's a greater chance of smacking the panel face itself. And lastly, depending on where they were looking at putting your panels, it's really going to depend on if you're going to be able to clear the snow off. So for me, I like that it's on the roof of the garage. It's low enough to get to, because they were originally looking at putting it on the house. And you can see there's the long arm fully extended to max height. So essentially, there'd be an impossibility of really getting the snow off using that and not using some type of ladder off the house itself and be able to even clear the snow yourself. You would just have to wait anyways until like springtime. So, which can be kind of a pain in the butt, because sometimes you want to be like, look, I'm just going to clear the panels off real quick. That way I can make sure everything's still working. And if you can't get to them, you might have a problem with an inverter or a panel or something like that. Maybe ice got underneath it and disconnected something weird. or a squirrel cut something while it was trying to hide underneath your panels during the wintertime, and you'd have no idea until everything melted free. And for me, putting it on top of the house itself just didn't make any sense because it's way up there and I can't do anything up there myself if I had to. So if a bad storm happened to do something, mess with the racking, loosen a bolt, loosen a panel or something, and I'm like, okay, all I got to do is just tighten this thing down. At least I can do it here in the garage. Way up in outer space up there, I can't. And I can only imagine as the snow rockets off the panels on the garage, snow rocketing off of anything up there is really going to be a hoot all the way down. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll check you next time. That and this pole being so tall, it's always a hoot whenever you take it loose and then have to retract everything back in. So we just go up. Oh, not in the tree, not in the tree. And let her fall down in. Boink. Back in the garage you go.